Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and today, don't freak out, or maybe freak out, I don't know, it's the mid-year freak out tag, where we kind of take a look at how are we doing reading-wise throughout this year. So this was a tag that I saw over on Kelsey from Slime and Slasher's channel, so definitely check out her video that she made. A bunch of people are making these right now because it's midway through the year and it's time to freak out, or maybe not. So let's go ahead and dive into these questions and see where am I at reading wise, which is not too bad actually. All right, let's dive into these questions. So question number 1, how is your reading going? Well, this year I set a goal of reading 65 books, which that was too low because I'm at 100 right now. I've read 100 books so far and I don't see any signs of slowing down. In fact, usually December is my highest reading month. Like last year I read about 30 books in December, so I am anticipating quite a few books this year. So far I've read like 100 books, which I'm excited about that progress. I was really happy about how much I've read so far. So really enjoying it. I've read a lot of great books this year and I can't wait to see what happens for the rest of the year. Question number 2. What is the best book you've read so far this year? Well, that is no doubt going to be C.C. Rios and the Desert of Souls by Kayla Rivera. I loved this book so much. I absolutely think this book is a must-read book if you love fantasy middle grade books with like a lot of fun lore and world building and characters that are so great, and danger and adventure and action. This book literally has it all and executes it perfectly. I actually don't think I have any critiques of this book. It was that good. It was so good. Definitely worth a read. Best book of the year so far for me. Best sequel you've read so far? Well, this was a little tricky because I thought, oh, best sequel. I don't really read a lot of like standalones and sequels that often. So I did find a sequel though that I really enjoyed. And that was Champion's Quest, book number 2, The Quest Master's Trap by Frank L. Cole. This is like a Dungeons and Dragons lit RPG fantasy book, and it was a lot of fun. I think I liked it a lot better than the first book, actually. So this is definitely the best sequel that I've read in 2024. Question number 4. Favorite reread. Now, this one was a toss-up because I've reread a few books this year, and I couldn't decide between 2 of them. So the first one was The Haunting by Bill Myers, book number 4 in the Forbidden Door series. Now this series is from the 90s, and to me this is like a Christian version of Fear Street books. These books are definitely in the Fear Street vibe. They're for young adults and they're pretty intense. They're all about these kids that are literally fighting demons in their hometown. And I will admit, I was a little nervous rereading these because I read them when I was like 18 years old and in high school. And back then I was a little bit of a different person. And I kind of was thinking, oh, am I going to still like these books? Will I enjoy them still? And glad to say I really did enjoy them. Now, that's not to say they're not kind of problematic here and there. They do have some different things in them that I don't theologically agree with anymore. And actually, every time I have tried to make my review video for this book and book number 3 in this series, I get foiled. Like, literally, I keep getting foiled trying to make my reviews of these books because I have a lot to say about them and kind of some complicated theological thoughts about them that would take a little bit to unpack. So I'm still working on my reviews of these and they will get up sometime. But this definitely was one of my best rereads, but it is tied for sure with Spine Chiller's Mysteries, Birthday Cake and I Scream by Freddie Katz. This was a reread as well for me, and I loved this book. This book held up on my reread. I really enjoyed it. Spine Chiller's Mysteries is like a Christian Goosebumps series, and this one is the best of the series in my opinion. It's really well done. It actually is scary. It has a great twist at the end that I thought, oh, that's so genius. The setup is so good and so spooky. Really loved it. Really, really loved it. So this was a fun reread. The one interesting thing, though, that my brother pointed out to me about this version versus the re-release of this, which I had read previously, is the main clown in this book is named Spooky instead of a different name. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why they changed the name, but who knows? So these are definitely my best rereads of 2024 so far. Number 5, a genre you've been loving and reading the most. So for me, this year has been given over to middle grade horror books. I have been reading tons of them. I love them. I think they're so much fun. They're like the right kind of spooky for me. Sometimes I've read some adult horror books and they really freak me out. Like Can't Sleep at Night kind of freak me out. And I feel like the middle grade ones are the perfect spot for me because they don't totally freak me out too much, but sometimes they can be a little bit spooky and a little bit horror filled, and then they're also a little bit, on the light side too. So I have been enjoying that genre very much this year. Number 6, a new release you haven't read but want to. So I've got some goodies because my wife got to go to a conference where she got some advanced reader copies of some books way ahead of before they come out. And one of them is The Legend of the Last Library by Frank L. Cole. And I'm so excited to read this book. So to me, this is a new release because even though it's not out yet, this one comes out, I think, in August. So it's still another month away. But I cannot wait to read this book. It's all about this very last library. Like, books have been banned. There's no more books anywhere. They can't find any, and these kids have a map to a lost library. So it sounds so interesting to me. I can't wait to read this book. I'm super excited to get to this. Number 7, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So I was thinking about this, and it was a little bit of a toss-up at first, but then I settled on which one I actually am really excited about. And I can't wait for Matt McMahon's next book in the Monsteria series, which is called Trapped in the Horror Dome. I think it looks so good. I can't wait to read it. I've really enjoyed Matt McMahon's Monsteria series, and book number 5 is coming up soon. I believe it is next month in August that we finally get it. So I can't wait to read it. Number 8, biggest disappointment. I've got a list. Okay. I have a few books here that were pretty big disappointments for me. So first off, I was pretty disappointed in the Dead Sea Squirrels series. This looked like a really funny series to me. I was really interested to read it. So I got the first 3 books from the library. And they were kind of not that good. I didn't really love them. They were really just really basic and very, very simplistic. And they're not stories. Each book does not actually finish a story. It just kind of continues. And it just was not for me. Not for me. It was a big disappointment. The other series kind of like that I was also disappointed by was the Secret of the Hidden Scrolls series by M.J. Thomas. And that series, I feel like had a lot of promise, but it literally, you can watch my reviews of the first 3 books that I read, and they just don't make sense. Literally, I just kept thinking, that logically does not make sense. It doesn't work. You can't do that. It doesn't make sense. So many things that I kept thinking that's not plausible with the story world you've set up. They were a big disappointment in my opinion. Then I would say the next biggest disappointment for me, I was really excited about this series, and then it ended up being kind of problematic, and that was book number 1 in the Daystar Voyages series, The Secret of the Planet Macon by Gilbert Morris and Dan Meeks, where there's this weird relationship between the captain of the ship, who is definitely over 18, and the new crew member, who, is she over 18? I don't know. And they have a sort of romantic relationship. It just comes across really weird, and I was kind of put off by it. So this was definitely one of my biggest disappointments so far too. The other disappointment for me was actually Goosebumps House of Shivers Goblin Monday, book 2 in the newest Goosebumps series. I felt like book number 1 in this series was pretty good. And then this one, it had so many plot holes, you could drive a truck through it. I just really, it was fine, but it had a lot of plot holes. And I feel like this was a big disappointment for me. So many disappointments. The other biggest disappointment for me is actually one I just read, and I actually really was disappointed by this. And that is, I read The Green Star of Oz by Roger S. Baum. And this is an Oz story written by L. Frank Baum's great grandson. And it's just not good. It was pretty bad. Like it had some interesting characters and a couple interesting ideas, but nothing is explained. And I was so frustrated by it. I'm going to have a review of this book so you can know exactly why I'm frustrated by it, but this is a big disappointment for me. Number 9, biggest surprise. So it was interesting thinking about biggest surprise, and I actually have a couple. One of them was Walt Disney's Annette and the Mystery of Smuggler's Cove. This was a big surprise for me because I didn't really know what to expect going in, and this is an old book from like the 60s. So you kind of never know exactly what you're getting into with these older books. Sometimes they're really well done, and sometimes they have stuff in them that you're like, oh, that didn't age well. And glad to say this book was pretty good. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this one. So it was definitely a big surprise for me how much I actually ended up enjoying this book. The other biggest surprise for me is one of my newest favorite series, and that is the Exetorn Adventures by Peggy Downing. These books are so much fun. I loved them so much. I read the whole series pretty much back to back to back straight through, and I don't always do that. I just had to pick up the next one. I had to read it. I loved these. They're like an 80s series, kind of in the vein of like Chronicles of Narnia or the Archives of Anthropos, kind of some of those older fantasy series like that. Loved these so much. Definitely a big surprise this year. The other biggest surprise for me was Bad Hair Day by R.L. Stine. This is book number 41 in the Goosebumps series. And this one, I feel like this book just captured millennials so well. And obviously this was written in the 90s when we were all kids. So this book was just so interesting to me at the exploration of dreams and like what people are looking for in life and what they hope for and what they get and what they don't get, and like the disappointments that come from being told you can be anything, but then you find out it's not all it's cracked up to be. This book was like a huge surprise to me. I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite Goosebumps books for sure. Number 10, favorite new author, debut or new to you. So I have 3 authors that I just started reading this year that I really enjoyed. The first one is Matt McMahon, who wrote the Monsteria series. I am loving these books. I can't wait for more. We've got to have more than just 5. The 5th one's coming out soon. I cannot wait to read it. I am so interested to see what happens. This book was a lot of fun, and I've so enjoyed Matt McMahon's book so far. The other author that I've really obviously enjoyed is Peggy Downing. She's brand new to me. I've never read her before until this year when I read all 6 of her Exetorn Adventures books. I don't think she has other books really, so this is kind of the end of the road in some ways, but I loved these books. I will definitely probably reread these at some point. The other new author to me is Kayla Rivera of Cesar Rios and the Desert of Souls. I cannot wait to read the rest of this trilogy. I loved this book, and I cannot wait to read the rest of them. Number 11, newest favorite character. So this took me a while to think about because I don't always in middle grade books find characters that I find super, super compelling. But I did find one that I really loved, and that was Humphreys from P.J. Davis's Nemesis and the Lost Vault of Time. That character, Humphreys, was just my favorite. I love Humphreys so much. He's just like this perfect mix of kind of bumbling, but has like, I know exactly what character to compare him to. So he is just like the bird character in the Never Ending Story 2 film, Nimbly, who has like this kind of like villainous side, but is kind of good, but is sort of bumbly, but also cares about the main characters. It was just, I love this character so much. So I absolutely love Humphreys from P.G. Davis's book Nemesis and the Lost Vault of Time. Definitely my favorite character of the year so far. Number 12, book that made you cry. So there are 3. I don't cry that often in books, and so when I do get a little teary-eyed, it means something. So there's only one book I've ever really wept over, and I've talked about that before, but the first book that I cried in was Brill and the Puffire Volcano, book number 6, the last book of the Exatorn Adventures by Peggy Downing. I absolutely loved this book. The end of this book was so good, so well done. I cried. I cried at the end of it. It was really, really good. It just was like this perfect, it's like the perfect payoff. It's like a payoff that you're hoping for. You get the payoff. It also is so satisfying. It just was everything. It was everything. I loved the ending. It was one of my favorite endings to a series, actually. I really think Peggy Downing stuck the landing with this book. The next one that made me cry is a picture book called The Squish by Brianna Garzu. And this book, I was reading it in Walmart in the store. And I started crying like, no, oh my goodness, it's so good. It's all about a little sandcastle that gets squished. And then like the things it goes through, like trying to not be squished in life. And just like the life lesson of this book, I felt like was so compelling. I loved it so much. It was great. The other book that made me cry was Cece Rios and the Desert of Souls. This book would have come back. I literally gasped out loud near the end of it, and I said, no, you can't do that. You cannot do that. And I had a little tear, and I was like, no, this is so sad. But it was so good. It was so good. It's not like a tear-jerking sadness. It was like a, no, how could you do this to me? It was really, really good. Number 13, a book that made you happy. So the first book that really made me happy was Annette and the Mystery at Smuggler's Cove. This was like, I read this at the beach, and it was like just the perfect like nostalgia bomb, like felt so cozy. It was a fun little mystery, but never any super wild danger. But it just was so fun. I really enjoyed this book. The other book that made me super happy was Segra and Stargull. It had like this palm tree aesthetic where it was like they were island hopping in this story on this adventure. It reminded me of The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, where you're just like traveling to island and like exploring. It just was so fun. I loved that book so much. It just made me so happy. Put a smile on my face. And then number 14, I'm going to morph this one a tiny bit because the original prompt is most beautiful book you've gotten or received this year. And I couldn't really think of a beautiful book that I've gotten, but I thought of a cover that I actually liked the best out of all the books that I've gotten so far. And that was R.L. Stine's Halloween Party from the Fear Street series, book number 8. I just really loved like the aesthetic of this cover, like the pumpkin and the like 80s 90s vibe to it, and I just thought it was a lot of fun, and I really loved this book too. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed this Fear Street book. Number 15, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, I definitely want to read The Legend of the Last Library by Frank L. Cole. This is like one of my next up ones that I want to read. The other book I want to finish actually is I really want to finish the Janitors series by Tyler Whitesides. So I've read books 1 and 2, and I'm working on book 3 right now, but I really want to read the rest of the series because my wife also picked up Janitor's School of Garbage, which is this first book in the sequel series, and a reader's copy of the second book of the series. So this one doesn't come out till September, so I am super excited to read these, but I gotta finish reading the first series first. So I kind of want to plow through those so I can get to these ones because I'm super interested to read this, especially a new one that hasn't come out yet. It's always fun. And then number 16, your favorite video or post from this year. So I think my favorite video this year was my 200 subscribers Q&A video. It was a lot of fun to make, and I was so excited to answer everybody's questions, and I was excited to get to 200 subscribers. It was really fun and really exciting, and I just can't wait to see where the channel goes from here. So we're not freaking out. This has been pretty good. Like, we're doing great. Things are going well. So I can't wait for the rest of the year. I am anticipating a lot more books. I'm curious if I'll get to 200 books. We'll see. I'm at 100 right now, so I have time. I can make it. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. We'll find out. So until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye.